Okay, with pleasure now, it's time to introduce my next couple of guests on my show. They make a part of a rock group, rock band called the Holysmoke Show. Welcome to you both.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having us on.
No worries. Glad to have you on. How are you today? And where are you in the globe right now?
Well, we're doing really well. We are 6 hours behind you in northern Alabama in the United States.
Brilliant. And Holy Smoke Show, there's two of you. Would you just like to introduce yourselves and maybe the other band members who aren't present today?
Absolutely. So it's just the two of us. My name is Couper King. I sing and play guitar, and I also am taking care of the bass frequencies as well with a pedal through my guitar. So it's actually just the two of us.
And I'm Marty before I just play the drums.
Brilliant. Nice to meet you both. And I was about to say here in my notes, Holy Smoke Show, that's quite a cool name. How did you
Thank you.
manage to conjure up your band's name?
Um, to me, it kind of means it's kind of two parts jumbled together. It's kind of a smoke show, like a smoke and mirrors show, like something that looks fantastic, but it's not real. It's very convincing, but it's not real. So smoke and mirrors, kind of a trickery kind of thing, and holy being anything that we hold in high regard and don't question and whatnot. And it feels to me that upon further examination, a lot of things in our society are the combination of those two things. Things that we won't question, or that we're taught not to question, and that we'll chase for our whole lives or hold in a high regard, but upon further examination there's really not a lot behind them or to them.
Cool. That's great. Thanks for explaining that. How would you describe your sounds? I know I mentioned that you're a rock group, but I yeah, imagine there's much more to being a rock group. I was going to say, how would you describe your sounds and like the lyrics that you're trying to compose?
So that's an excellent question. I think it's one that's probably difficult for most artists to answer, ourselves included in that. We're probably a little too close to it. I can tell you what we were going for, and I can tell you some of the feedback we've gotten so far. So when we were writing, when we were sculpting this specific sound, well, I guess first it started with a vision, with some things that we weren't happy with in the world and we thought needed some attention. And we went through a long list of ways that we could try to participate in the world, and came back to playing music, was as the best way we thought that we could try to bring attention to some things that need talked about. And then it was, okay, so we're going to write some songs about it. What should the song sound like? What should it's like sonically? And it was actually almost all bands from Brighton, UK, that we sculpted this sound after. So for us, it was Royal Blood, Dinosaur Pileup, Dead Poet Society from here in the US. Those were like the main bands that we were listening to. Oh, Tiger Cub.
I was gonna say Tiger Cub.
Yeah, Tiger Cub for sure. Those were the main things that we were listening to. Whether we nailed that, I don't think so. I think it ended up sounding like our own kind of thing, but that's kind of what we had in mind for the feel. And then we were lucky enough, we recorded everything ourselves here in this room, actually, and edited everything. And then we got really lucky that a guy named Casey Sable, who was the original lead singer of a band called Periphery, ended up hearing our demo and wanted to mix it. And so he ended up taking what we recorded and then mixed the whole thing, doing more like what he does. And he comes much more from the metal world, which is not a world that we were previously, I mean, we're aware of, but that wasn't our sound necessarily. So we put these like kind of modern metal sounds, even though we're not playing metal music and no metal riffs or anything. So it ended up kind of sounding, well, I guess I'll let you or whomever else be the judge of what it ended up sounding like. But that's kind of what we were going for, and I don't think we replicated it exactly. Just probably a good thing.
And then my next question I'm going to ask for you, whenever you're touching on some of your singles, you had a latest single release called "The Wrong Side of History." Could that be like based on real true events, like real stories? And who did you have the pleasure of recording the track with, like collaborating with?
Oh, absolutely. So we wrote and recorded everything ourselves. So we didn't collaborate outside of the band for any of the writing or recording. The only collaboration we did was for the mixing. Like I said, it was Casey Sable, and then Eric Hill mastered it and did an excellent job. Yes, you're absolutely right. Wrong Side of History is based on many things from the past, many things that we see are going on in the world right now. It has to do with human ego and this thing that we seem to continually do, where we try to fix problems that don't exist using ego and technology, and end up creating a problem that was worse than the first one in the first place, or further exacerbating the problem that we were trying to solve. And it seems like with a lot of things, at least here in America, it feels like a lot of social progress that was made over the last 50 years or so are just being undone. And feels like we're moving in the wrong direction. And kind of zooming out on that and looking at similar times, like in the 30s and 40s in Europe and whatnot, those kind of movements are never remembered well by the history book.
Do you think it's a case of like one step forward, two steps back, you make progress, and then you always seem to like step back?
Yes, it feels a lot like that. Absolutely. I mean, we'll see how it all plays out, but I'm hoping it was two steps forward, one step back. So hopefully it was still overall progress, and we can, even after this step back, we can take another two forward, but we'll see how that goes.
That's fair enough. And also another track on your playlist, The Business is Booming. Is that along the same lines, kind of trying to portray about, businesses, enterprises, corporations? Could it be about that at all?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's about corporations, corporate greed, and how we are willing to destroy everything around us in the name of even the things that we hold holy and that everybody seems to agree on. I'm sure you're aware we've got an issue with mass shootings and school shootings and whatnot here in the US. And I was kind of just trying to point out that no matter which way you think you fall on that, opinion wise, that there was a corporation that got their buck off of it. That's all I was trying to point out, is that no matter which way you think you fall on political issues or social issues, it's your money's all going back to the corporation.
And talked about a bit like, your songs, I was going to ask you, has pure classic rock music always played a big part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you hear that in songs?
Yeah, I did, because you mentioned like you get your heavier songs, your metal, and with your music, it's as I say, like pure classic rock.
I'll take it. Yeah, I'm cool with that. So I personally grew up listening to almost literally every style of popular music from the 1940s to modern day. There was a time when I was obsessed with big band swing, and then 50s rockabilly, and 60s doo-wop and soul, and then 70s rock, and then 80s like hair band, and also like synth pop stuff. And then my musical coming of age was closer to, I was more turned on to like the 90s grunge stuff. And so I absolutely idolized the 90s grunge stuff, the Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, those good things. Yeah, so those were definitely all influences for sure.
Because I played Smells Like Teen Spirit the other weekend, and it's a song which totally blew the 80s away, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sonically, that album is still, Butch Vig did such an amazing job on that from a engineering and production side. Sonically, it holds up to this day.
What's your opinions of like, where Nirvana, like, were appealing to the next generation? They seem to be like rocking the t-shirts, with Nirvana.
Yeah, I mean, I have zero problem with that whatsoever. If it turns, I mean, even if, because I've heard stories, of course, of kids that are wearing Nirvana shirts and think that it's a clothing brand and have never heard of the band. And I find myself asking, well, what does that hurt? How does that hurt the music? How does that hurt the music? How does it hurt the legacy? Like, what damage is that doing? I don't see what damage it's doing. However, if one, and obviously the number would be much higher than one, but even if one kid got a Nirvana shirt, wore it for a year or whatever, and thought it was a clothing brand, but then tuned into the music, it's a net positive. So I really don't see a problem with that at all.
Meant to ask you as well, do you have merchandise on your website where people can have a look, maybe purchase you know, and why not rock a Holysmoke merch?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. Thank you for asking. You can find all of our songs, including our unreleased music, available to stream and download at holysmokeshowmusic.com. And we also have our shirts there as well that we hand printed ourselves.
Very
all made
nice.
with eco-friendly ink and whatnot.
So talked about 2 songs there. Will these tracks lead up to like a new EP or a collection of songs in the near future?
Yeah, today's musical landscape is an interesting one, and it's one that we are still trying to navigate and learn the best that we possibly can by doing. We recorded 6 songs all at the same time. So there are 6 songs that are completely done, mixed, mastered, ready to go. Personally, I wanted to release them all at the same time and then just kind of push singles, the way I feel like things used to be done. But I was encouraged by everyone I know that's in the industry and whatnot, and releasing stuff these days to not do that. So far we've been releasing a song every 2 months, and I believe that's a schedule that we're going to stay on for a little while.
It does seem to work that when I've interviewed like previous guests, they seem to prefer to do like single after single after single, then maybe do an EP and then see how it goes from there.
Exactly.
Cool. Next question. What's the feeling like when you hear like your song being played back, you know, like on the radio or just like, you know, in a rock club, say?
It's cool. It's cool, but it's kind of surreal. But I also kind of have this this intentional detachment. So it feels so intimate when we're writing it, but even then we're trying to come from a place of service. It's for us, we try to figure out what matters to us, what we want to say, and then we are of service to that message. And we try our best not to screw it up by how we write it and how we record it. And then once it's recorded and it's out into the world, I don't really see it as mine or ours anymore, you know, if that makes any sense. So for me, I'm grateful to be able to participate in something that I believe in. But as far as any sort of like ego gratification or like a ownership kind of feeling, I personally don't feel that.
You seem like a type of band who are like in it for the music, you know, for the passion. As you say, like some egos, you know, some are just in it for, you know, on the make, on the take.
Yeah. So like I said, for us, it's more about how we participate in the world and what we have to offer rather than what we have to gain from it, you know.
Like getting
if we
your
could
message.
Needle,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Getting your message across. Yeah.
In the right direction.
Cool. Also,
oh, I'm sorry, you broke up for a second.
Oh yeah. What's the satisfaction like when you get like testimonials from like say like music magazines, journals, and the press? You know, like positive.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good. It feels good that the message is being received. It feels good that that we're able to participate in a way that might make someone feel a little bit less alone about how they're already feeling. It might encourage somebody else who doesn't agree with our message or maybe hasn't thought about the topics that we're writing about to maybe put some thought on that. It feels good to participate in that way.
And then, do you have like any future set goals or further achievements you may like to fulfill in the next 5 or 10 years or so, or is it just a case of like just keep on going and going?
Yeah, keep going and going. We want to keep learning as much as we can too. Of course, I don't want to get stagnant or feel like I'm stagnant within the band and the art, but that stems from I don't want to feel stagnant in my perception of the world and my understanding of the world. So I would imagine that even if we're still talking about these issues, if they change over time, our message should be changing over time. Our music should be changing over time. So I don't necessarily want to keep standing in the same place and keep screaming the same thing if the world around me has changed, you know. So we want to keep learning as much as we can and growing as much as we can and hopefully finding the most helpful ways that we can participate in the world.
I mean, don't stop believing.
Right.
Final question. Any advice for just you know, young people who may wish to follow in your footsteps, you know, forge a music or career or in any artistic field? Would you say, you know, pick up a guitar, learn a musical instrument and just enjoy it?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly that. We actually met because we're both music teachers. We went out and played music in the real world and realized that it was something that we had to share. And so we both actually teach at a music school a few days a week. And so I'm getting a lot of firsthand experience on what the youth is like right now from a musical perspective, what they're into, what their practice habits are like, what their interests are like. And there are still the youthful landscape, I think, is very different from when we were kids, or at least, you know, there's a lot of on phones, a lot of video games, a lot of that stuff. And of course, those things were around when we were kids too. I can say me personally, I was one of the kids who didn't sit in front of video games and didn't grow up playing video games. The guitar was my video game. And I'm pleased with how that has turned out for me. And I definitely don't want to tell anybody else how to live their life or what their interest or passion should be. But maybe if I was a kid in today's age, I would try to, if it were possible, be conscious of how much time I'm putting into. Because if you think about the fact that you are practicing at whatever you're doing, if you're sitting on the couch, you're practicing at sitting on the couch. You're going to get better or more effective at sitting on the couch, or whatever it may be. So whatever you're putting your time into, that is practice. So if it's a video game or whatever, and if that's what you want to do, absolutely. But if you're practicing at the video game, it's likely not going to make you any better at guitar. So I would just maybe be conscious of things like that.
Well, and we'd just like to run by your website again for my listeners and your Facebook socials.
Absolutely. Thank you. So our website is www.holysmokeshowmusic.com. And all of our socials, you can find us at Holysmoke Show Music on Instagram. We actually ran into an issue on TikTok, so we can't use, so smoke is a banned word, even though we're not talking about any sort of, illicit activity. But so on TikTok, everything is under my personal, so Couper.King, COUPER.KING.
Brill. Thank you very much for a great chat. It's been very informative and interesting interview, and we'll look at getting one of your tracks played on my show now. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
To you both
I
of
really
you.
appreciate having us. Thank you.
Brilliant.